Very responsible person. I think that's some people that drive.
Okay, guys, on this somewhat brisk wintry day, sorry we don't have hot grog. But mulled wine, that would be great. But there is stuff in the back room. If you and it looks like most of you have gotten some. The last two forums that we've had have talked about some initiatives at the NIH that really pertain to all grants, and I think probably many of you, I hope all of you, are aware of those new sort of evaluation criteria that have to do with methodology, reproducibility, and so on. And if you missed those and want to view those, I believe they are available.
Yep, they're on the website.
They're on the website, and slide decks are available as well. But in that spirit, we thought what we would do today is take some time to talk about another initiative. This is within the CCTS, but it's sponsored by NCATS, and that's the Vouchers Program. And what we'd like to do...
Mark?
Excuse me? Yeah. Is that Mark? Mark, how are you?
It's frightening.
Mark, you probably can't see me because I'm off. Can you see me, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. Mark, you're muted, but that's fine. Do you want me to ask Mark to turn off? Mark,
can you please turn off your
you are being very bad right now. You want him to turn off his webcam for the moment? Yes. Thank you very much, Mark. You know, one of the problems standing here, I didn't see what was happening, so you were having your way with this presentation, and that wasn't quite fair. Anyway, what we'd like to do is we'd like to describe the Voucher Program. Both the philosophy behind the Voucher Program and then some specific examples of resources and capacity that you can use of the Voucher Program to get access to. So, you know, and this is the pitch to remind us all of what our mission is. It's not only to do translational research, but it's to do translational research that is particularly relevant to our region. So what does that mean? There are certain diseases and conditions that disproportionately affect our region. Those might include stroke, cardiovascular disease, certain kinds of cancers, some autoimmune disease. So that's part of our mission, to focus on those that disproportionately affect persons in the region. But there are also issues of disparity, whether those are disparities in the way a particular condition might affect you, disparities of access. The ultimate goal, of course, is to improve health. So part of the way we do that, we collectively, not only at the CCTS hub in Birmingham, but throughout our partner network, and if any of our other partners pop up without letting me know that they're taking over the free, you'll get a chance to meet a number of them. But the intent of the Voucher Program is to provide access to the support that's available through the CCTS. You may know that this represents over the last, really, 10, 15 years, a way the NIH is trying to facilitate, and not just accelerate translational research, changing the model a little bit, and they want to make sure that access, perhaps to the JT15, when we're in the Birmingham hub, perhaps consultations in biostatistics, and we'll have Mike Griswold from UMMC talk about that. Perhaps it's a bioinformatics. It can make access to those things not be limited access, not be a barrier to research, but we have the Voucher Program to help defray the cost of that. So that's really the Voucher Program. So we're going to describe in a little bit what the program actually is, and then we'll give you some specific examples.
One-time thing.
What is the application
I
process?
think you need to be more to the mic. You're putting a little message up there, just fading in and out.
Well, that's not because I'm either close or not close enough. It's past 5 o'clock. I get told that I'm fading out more often than I'm fading in. Anyway, so what are the kinds of activities that are available? Obviously, clinical services of a whole variety. And what I'd like to do is introduce Bert Neighbors, who is the medical director up on JT15, to use the clinical services unit up there as an example of how we might use vouchers, emphasizing the point again, this is not limited just to activities in Birmingham, it's across the partner network, but we had to choose some examples to illustrate the program. So this is my cue to fade out, and for Bert to fade in.
Okay, so the provides the clinical services unit, which are the integrated resources of the Phase 1 program and the clinical research unit. You can think of these as primarily as space, nursing or patient care technicians, such as laboratory draw or other types of resources that you need to interact with, and laboratory resources, as well as dietary and nutrition support. We divide these into nursing, the Phase 1 trial component, the SPAN or specimen processing facility, bionutrition, the research pharmacy, and then Chester with the CRISP program, which can provide more mobile support for your research needs. The types of activities that you may envision being done on JT15 that could cover any one of these spheres would potentially be eligible for the voucher program. If it's the type of activity you would normally envision your research utilizing these resources, then those are the types of opportunities you may have for the voucher program. Example could be participation in a multi-institutional NIH cooperative group clinical trial that requires certain laboratory collections, so you need support with laboratory collection, the processing of that sample, minus the storage of that sample, but you don't have NIH financial support for that resource. Those are the types of things that would be eligible.
So,
questions?
Yes.
From
Are
the
there
audience?
specific questions about any questions or comments from folks?
And if you're not here at UAB, I guess you can type it in and maybe we can see it will show up.
So, Bert, can you give us a specific example of how one might use voucher?
So in the form of CRISP, again, I think this is in the context of the types of services that you may utilize. So an example could be that you're participating in an NIH clinical trial, or that you have grant support for a study that involves human participants, but you in and of yourself do not have a research nurse or a care coordinator. This is the type of interaction you can have with Penny Jester on sorting out what your needs may be to support that patient related or subject related interaction, and then submit that to the voucher program. Any comments on that?
No, nothing more than you just said. I think certainly contacting us and we'll work with you if we can assist you in how that will play out. And otherwise, we can also make recommendations on other resources that may be available.
I think one other thing also to just emphasize is that we also provide support for grant submission in the form of budgeting for clinical research, justification for the different resources you may need, so we can help you with that preemptively as you're moving forward in either NIH, other reviewed, or sponsor-supported research as you're formulating your budget plan.
Or if somebody were going to think about Chris, Bob's example, how would they formulate their budget for how much they're asking for a voucher? In other words, where would they go to find out that they have to give a call to find out the hourly rate or the...
Some of this is actually posted on the CCTS website. Some of this, depending on the uniqueness or the individual investigator need, you may have to go directly to those individuals. So for Chris, Penny Jester; for the CRU, Jolene Lewis; for the Phase 1 program, Dr. Solly or Tracy. You may have to go directly to those individuals, but many of the larger type of activities, we do have an idea of what those charges are locally, and those are posted. I think that's kind of key to including those in our budgets, and that not singling out NIH budget, but also sponsor budgets. So when we're submitting or participating in sponsored clinical trial, either via pharmaceutical company, foundation, whatnot, that information's available. We need to include that, and in the past, I think we often have not necessarily included that, and we can help provide a justification for those costs, which are competitive.
Specifically, the reason I'm asking is because when we talk about the application for vouchers, it might be good for people for certain activities. So they can make a formulated budget that's reasonable.
I would
facilitate
completely agree with that.
Are agreeing with their proposal.
Some question that popped up there. You get it back. Joe, go ahead, please.
Oh, I actually had, I don't know if it's yet or not, but there is a cap on what you can ask in a voucher, correct? I mean, we talked probably what you can, I mean, some of these things would be
Dr.
maybe.
Kimberly wins the Powerball, the cap will be pretty high.
I think it's $200,000 or $300,000.
But right now, it's looking pretty reasonable.
5K.
5K.
That's kind of where I was going with the planning process.
There is a question.
Okay, hang on.
Oh, it went away.
It went away. Click on
Can
one
we
of
click on the
those
button on that?
buttons.
Do I click on it?
No, on
No,
the
you have to
mouse.
Oh, this is, see, I'm a Mac guy, and this just doesn't
We're
work for
checking on
me.
it on the different computer.
Are you on?
So could you answer that question, Bert?
The amount of vouchers?
No, the question that popped up on the screen.
No, I didn't have my glasses on in time to read it, to be honest with you.
It popped up and then went away.
Okay, here, I can,
Good. I thought you could help.
unfortunately, there's no way to look at it without disrupting me.
Pretty happy.
Okay. Can instructions
Instructors.
use the system to generate some preliminary data?
Good question.
I'll let, and Bob, you may want to answer this one. This resource is obviously for UAB participants. I think if when you think about the physical part of what we're describing, yes. I don't know what the vision is as far as, something like a CRISP program outside of UAB. That may be something to consider. When you say, can instructors use this to generate some preliminary data, that's feasible if what you're envisioning is this preliminary data would be something that would require the utilization of these resources. And so if your preliminary data is a part of a developmental award, from your department, from an institutional peer-reviewed competition, and you have resources related to that, and you would require a interaction with a patient or a participant where we would either be drawing, collecting samples, processing those, something that would require a nursing intervention on site or remotely with CRISP. All of those types of activities would be strongly encouraged to help you generate preliminary data and also help you with the formation of your grant and justification for in the future. So I would say absolutely.
Could I add a couple of comments?
Sure.
And I think
I'm ready to get out of the spotlight.
Am I supposed to fade in here?
Yeah, you fade out.
So one of the questions for those of you who can't read it is this resource is obviously for UAB participants. And this is from Roy. So Roy, I hope you're still there. In each of the examples we're going to use, we're going to draw some from UAB. I think we're drawing from Mississippi, USA, and Jennifer, help me out.
Auburn.
And the issue here is for us to realize the voucher program applies network-wide. The use of the voucher program and the services that are available through the CCTS partner network will vary a little bit from site to site. At the UAB hub, the way our clinical services unit, the place where there's direct patient contact, we do have a modest facilities fee. For those grants that haven't put that into their budget, this is a way to make sure that that doesn't become a barrier. This is a way to take care of it. The expectation from the NIH is that in a go-forward fashion, all grants will have these expenses in their budget, but we're fully aware that there are a number of people who are in the space where this could be a barrier. So, yes, Roy, the specific example when we say JT15, that is a UAB-specific comment, but units like this are present throughout the partner network. I think the second question was, can instructors use this system to generate some preliminary data? Bert, I think you addressed that issue, but part of the goal of the voucher system is to make sure that we're doing everything we can to facilitate that research. I would stress that it is really important that whether you consider preliminary data part of an ongoing protocol, that all the work that's being done has had IRB review and approval. I hope there's never a time where we have to say this and have someone respond by saying, gee, I didn't know that, because this is really pretty important. But we're going to be emphasizing that a lot, in part because NIH is asking us to make sure with everything we support through the pilot program or pilots, or through the voucher program and pilots, that everything is IRB reviewed. Stu?
What that instructor might be also just wanting to make sure of is, does it have to be a funded project that they want to collect data for to use this service? And the answer is
No, it does not.
I just want to be clear, because I think that's what they're asking.
And I think if just to amplify though, if that's the goal, I wouldn't view this as the primary mechanism for funding such studies, but to supplement other things that are going on so it's not a barrier. Absolutely, that is the Other questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
more questions to scroll up.
So,
Somebody knows what they're talking
Dr. Kimberly fades in and out.
We fixed that one.
So that's an
We
old
know.
one. That's well known. We thank you very much for that. And Jean Lambert has said she can hear everyone next week. Jean is listening and making sure.
And Roy commented.
And thank you.
In terms of Roy's,
If you'd like to close that, then it will pop up again if there are more questions.
Sure.
Let's see.
In terms of Roy's comment about, certainly JT15's resources can only be used at JT15 by definition. But I just want to make sure that it's understood. If there is an analogous unit for service at another partner institution, can a voucher be used for that service?
Yes, that's
I think you said that. I just want to make sure that was.
that is clear. And it's also possible that there may be capacities that would be at one place that are not in another. This is usually an extended consultative capacity. So cross-institutionally, we can use vouchers to help support that activity as well. Okay? Are we done?
Should we?
Up, down, left, right, no movement. Okay. So, Elliot, it's going to be your turn. So, what we'd like to talk about next in terms of an area of capacity is informatics. This actually points in part to Southeast Informatics Consortium. Elliot. But Elliot, if you can come up and explain some of the things that are available throughout this consortium, and then how vouchers may be used to access that, it would be very helpful.
Thanks, Bob. So, as Bob indicated, I first want to talk a bit about the services that are available, the people that are available to perform the services that we offer, and then I'll talk about how the voucher program fits in to what we're doing. So in terms of the services for informatics services that are available through the CCTS and others that I'll mention in a minute are an extraordinarily broad range of activities that can be supported, starting with sort of basic biological research needs in terms of bioinformatics, all the way up through clinical research, clinical operations even, are some of the types of services, the range of services that we can support. So, as I said, we can support basic bioinformatics needs, sequence analysis, looking for significant functional patterns in single genes, but going up through next generation sequence analysis, looking at large databases of sequences, and helping to assemble, annotate, discover variation in these sequence data sets. They may be derived from the complete genomes of viruses, bacteria, model organisms, and humans. We have experience in every one of those areas working with genomic information and helping to discover the functional patterns, the variant patterns that might help understand different diseases. Going on from there, we do a lot of work in terms of microbiome and metagenomic analysis, analyzing the population of microbes that inhabit our bodies and helping to determine how those microbial populations might be associated with different diseases. Carrying on up from the bioinformatic end of things, clinical informatics also is an area of expertise that can help support your needs to gather data from clinical systems, whether that be directly from the EHR or other ancillary systems that might have data that you might want access to. And through various means, various resources that we are providing, through the people that are part of the informatics consortium, we can help provide that clinical data. What's most important, I think, what we provide more than anything else is the people who have the expertise that can support your needs. So the core group starts with the CCTS informatics group that's also associated with the Informatics Institute. But really what we have there goes much beyond that core CCTS informatics group. It encompasses people such as in the Heflin Genomics Center. It may encompass people from statistical genetics in the School of Public Health, even going on to UAB IT and computer science, because informatics really requires expertise not only in the biological end of things, but also in the ability to do the processing, the computational processing needed to understand the data. So we need people who have expertise in high-performance computing, as an example. That's certainly not an all-inclusive list. There are many other people talking about UAB who have expertise. And what's key is you don't have to know who those people are. you come to us, you put in a query to Research Commons, or you contact me directly, and we can help put together the team that's necessary in order to provide the services that you need. But it definitely doesn't stop there. As Bob mentioned, a number of the partners within the CCTS, the partner institutions, have come together in the Southeast Informatics Consortium. And we have conference calls several times a month. And what we've done is put together a listing of experts at each institution who have their own particular area of expertise, who are available as well to lend a hand for projects that might need their particular type of expertise. And so again, you don't have to know necessarily who they are. You can come in through Research Commons, and then we can put you in touch with the required people. But we do have a list of what we call experts and expertise on the CCTS website in the informatics section, that if you wish to peruse that list and see who might have expertise at one of the CCTS partner institutions, you can download that list and look for yourself. So that's the services we provide. Those are the people that provide it. So how does the voucher program fit into that? So our support, what we do is supported by several different mechanisms. For one, initial consultation for anybody who needs informatics support is provided on a subsidized basis. So funds that we get from the CCTS, from the School of Medicine, from other sources, help us subsidize an initial consultation. So anyone can come in, whether or not they have specific funding or not, and we'll sit down and work with you to talk about the problem, talk about your approaches to the problem, the data you're generating, and how we're going to get that analyzed. Now, if someone has a funded grant, or if someone's putting in a grant that has a line item for informatics, we're available to collaborate. And our most fruitful collaborations come when we can be part of your research team. So our informaticians then form a line item in the budget. They have a certain percentage of their FTE devoted to the particular grant, and that way we set up a collaboration, and we can offer, therefore, long-term support for any project that might be available. But what the voucher program does, it fits in between the initial consultation and the full-blown grant support. It allows us to provide support for more longer-term projects beyond that initial consultation period, so then we can go in, provide you with the informatics expertise, and then you can, for a good period of time, utilize that expertise through the voucher program in order to fund the types of analyses that you may need. So as an example, there's the CCTS multidisciplinary pilot program. So those have limited amounts of funds. You could have funding from another internal funding source, from Cancer Center, AIDS Center, wherever, a pilot program that has funds to support your laboratory work, but may not have the funds available to support the informatics analysis. So the voucher program would be ideal to bring an informatician onto your team, and we can use that to support our work. We do a lot of microbiome work, as I mentioned. And for initial consultation, we sit down with the investigator, we talk about the experimental design, and we especially talk about the samples that are going to be analyzed and how those samples are grouped. And so we have an automated pipeline into which we feed that information, and then that automated pipeline gives you a web-based report. And all that's automated. The web-based report gives you a preliminary analysis of the results of your microbiome analysis. If you're doing a pilot study and you're looking as to whether or not there's some association between the microbial population and some phenotype, and it says, well, no, there's not, then okay, that's the end of the line. The initial consultation and that automated process does that. That's subsidized. You don't have to worry about it anymore. But frequently what happens is there is something interesting in that data. And each domain, whether it be skin disease research, maybe it be autoimmune disease research, that domain has a particular way in which the people writing the papers and the people submitting the grants want to see the data presented, want to see the data analyzed. And so what we have on that web-based support or web-based report isn't sufficient. So we need to go back in and help you reanalyze and revisualize those data sets. That takes additional time and effort. So the voucher program, again, can support that type of analysis. So anything like that that requires additional level of effort beyond the initial consultation, but maybe not the full-blown grant, can be supported by the voucher program. And then finally, I might say that a lot of what we do is in preparatory to grant submission. And so when you submit the grant, when you prepare the budget for that grant, then we can get the information as a line item on that budget and then support it long-term in the future.
Good. Elliot, thanks very much. What I'd like to do, mindful of the hour, I'd like to go through each of the domains, and then at the end we can talk about some of the specifics of the mechanism and then any other questions that you might have. So if we're working here, Mike Griswold from UMMC is going to talk about biostatistic epidemiology and research design. And do we need to switch to Michael being on video, or is Michael, are you coming in just by audio? Just by.
I have audio. I can.
Go for it.
I think I can put my webcam on here. I don't know if you guys.
We can
We can see you. Thanks very much.
I should probably turn it back off again. That's terrible. Okay, so can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll probably echo, I think, a lot of what Dr. Lefkowitz just said, because I think it's very similar to what David and I had talked about for the BIRD group. Just as a introduction, so we thought maybe as a live demonstration of collaboration across institutions, David and I might tag team this BIRD slide, instead of just having me present what's on there. In terms of what might be appropriate projects for vouchers and kind of what questions might remain for how do we administrate these things across institutions and things of that nature. So the BIRD, of course, is Biostats, Epi, Research Design, and the goals for it are to support rigorous methodology and scientific reproducibility for clinical and translational investigations. In the same way that Dr. Lefkowitz just said, what can the vouchers be useful for? We think they can be useful to bridge these areas where you might have to do a lot more work than just an initial consultation, a conversation over the phone to guide someone to how to do it. When it comes beyond that level, but there's no support, then there's kind of a gap for how you get that done, especially likely in relation to young junior investigators who are trying to invest in to get pilot data ready for their R01 grants or other grants that they'd like to apply for. So with that in mind, the BIRD group consists of partners at Auburn, Hudson Alpha, LSU, PBRC, University of Mississippi Medical Center, where I'm at, Tulane, Southern Research, University of Alabama. And David has us organized into having a related BIRD calls every now and again to try to figure out how we best work together and how we put together our own kind of matrix of expertise and interest areas to post on the website and allow people to know, what is available through the BIRD. There are things like Jason Parton at University of Alabama is one of the members, and Ben Wong also of South Alabama does bioinformatics, measurement error, fractal modeling, a lot of survival things. John LaFont at Tulane does program evaluation and healthcare quality, access and evaluation. Mattery Melcar, also at South Alabama, does selection and ranking procedures and sequential estimation and testing. So if you're into like adaptive trial designs and you think that's going to sell the grant, if one of the partner networks didn't have somebody at their institution to provide that expertise, then potentially the voucher system may be a way you could reach across institutions to tap into someone. Myself, I'm here. My wife will tell you I'm not necessarily great at anything, but I can accomplish a few small tasks if you give me enough time. And in general, the BIRD is a network that has a lot of various complementary methodologic expertise that could be of use. Broad principles that David and I talked about were that, again, trying to assist junior investigators getting pilot data up and running. That's, $5,000 is better than nothing, but it's really not a lot of funds. So what can you really use it for? And the good things we thought you could use it for are things like if you've got a big data set like CMS data, and you need to get a programmer in there to get out some answers for pilot data for a grant application, that's going to require more than just a phone conversation with one of the BIRD experts. So working with that person may require funding, especially if it's cross-institutional, and that might be a good place for a voucher program, specifically going after kind of a bird expertise. But in general, investigators tend to use the resources available at their own institution. So why would anybody at UAB want to come see Mike Griswold if David Redden is right down the hall? I'd probably go see David Redden. But so it's times where there are unique aspects, I think, that are available someplace else that could be the best use. So if somebody at UAB wanted to apply for an AHA CVGPS award and they needed access to the Jackson Heart Study data with maybe some processing and analytics for, again, pilot results, but also even just help getting through all the administrative hoops from the Ancillary Study Committee process and things that our Jackson Heart Study Coordinating Center, we know how to do it. We can kind of, smooth that way, and using the voucher system as a platform to try to get that investigator that unique level of expertise that may not exist at their own institution. As also Dr. Lefkowitz said, we're all interested in academics and collaboration and not consultation. So thinking of these vouchers as just kind of a bridge to go and getting other funding sources, I think that's pretty much up the alley of what David and I were talking about. And with an eye towards the danger of someone trying to use these funds to kind of bypass what they would usually write into a grant for database development or analytics or something else of that nature. So I'll go with very similar to Dr. Lefkowitz. It's going to depend on what the individual investigator needs and whether we can use the CCTS and the Consortium to make those individual expertise and resources available, which a lot of it is communication and advertising and letting people know what is available. Lastly, I'd say that the administration of these things is still something I have questions about. I'm not sure exactly how these are going to work. If an investigator comes in and needs to have the clinical trials unit draw some blood and then go have some bioinformatics from Lefkowitz data generated and then need some biostatistics analysis done on them, how do you fit all that into a $5,000 award and communicate how much goes to the different groups of the vouchers? That's I think is going to be maybe problematic. So in my own mind, I think these might be most useful for things where kind of the data are already collected and you need some analytics run because the costs otherwise are maybe prohibitive of getting anything useful out of them. But I'm biased, I know, in that respect.
Mike, thanks very much. I think what we'll do is there are a number of operational questions about how it might work, and those we might save to the end because we do have some ideas about how to do that. But unless there's something very burning to ask of Mike right now, what I'd like to do is go on to the next presentation. Fair enough? Mike, thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you for letting me present.
Good, thank you. So, I'm sorry. Who's that? Tom, are you up?
I am.
Now, why don't I haven't changed the slide behind you, but we can't see that anyway, so why not go right ahead right now?
Okay.
Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you. So at Auburn, we're primarily focused on, let me see, I may have to, I'm getting an echo here. Let's see, let me try that.
You're okay as far as we're concerned. I don't know about other sites. We don't hear an echo.
How about this? Does this work?
This is fine.
Okay, great. So at Auburn, we're primarily focused on high field magnetic resonance imaging. We've got a 3 Tesla scanner at our center and a 7 Tesla scanner. Both are
Welcome to Verizon Wireless. The wireless customer you called is not available at this time. Please try your call again later. Announcement 1, switch 113-5.
High fields, high magnetic fields are very useful.
Welcome to Verizon Wireless. The wireless customer you called is not available at this time. Please try your call again later. Announcement 1, switch 113-5.
Anatomical images, so you can see finer details that you might not be able to see at lower field strengths. If you're doing functional MRI, for example, we get higher sensitivity at high fields, so we can see more subtle activations in the brain at high fields and that may be difficult to see at lower fields. Also, when it comes to MR spectroscopy, which is basically NMR spectroscopy in living tissue, we also have an increased sensitivity. For example, we can resolve glutamine as separate peaks on our 7 Tesla scanner, which is difficult to do at lower field strengths. Also, if you're interested in acquiring spectra from non-hydrogen nuclei, like phosphorus, for example, which has a lower concentration in the body, higher field strengths are very useful for that. They really help the sensitivity there. And we routinely do phosphorus spectroscopy at our center in the heart and skeletal muscle, and also the liver. When it comes to the voucher program, there are a couple of issues that I'd like to address. One is the cost of the MRI. We charge $550 an hour for our scanner, which feels a very reasonable rate. And that's for both scanners, either the 7T or the 3T scanner. But probably the biggest issue when it comes to working with the MRI center is our scanners aren't really mobile. They're kind of fixed here at Auburn. And so the question is, how do you get your patients to the center to get imaged? And there's a couple of ways, or a few ways to handle this. First, in some studies, a lot of the data can be acquired in normals, and we can recruit those locally. And we've done that in several situations. Also, if you're in the Birmingham area, we have the Alabama Advanced Imaging Consortium, which is, or the AAIC, which has established a shuttle system that runs back and forth between Auburn and Birmingham, and it's convenient to get 3 or 4 patients, put them on the shuttle, send them down to Auburn for the day. We image them, and they get sent back. We've already done this for about 30 or so patients, schizophrenia patients, from Dr. Lottie's lab. He's a psychiatrist at UAB, and that's worked really well. Of course, if you're not in the Birmingham area, we'll have to work something else out. But at least in concept, we have experience with this idea of long distance, fairly long distance transportation of patients, and we could work with anybody who's interested. Also, in some cases, we're developing a new imaging sequence, and so a lot of the work's actually on the front end when it comes to developing the sequence and optimizing the sequence. And of course, that again can be done with a lot of that can be done with normal volunteers, which can be recruited here at Auburn. We're doing something like that with Larry Verhoff, who's a leptologist at UAB. He's using high-resolution MRI to image the internal architecture of the hippocampus in temporal lobe epilepsy patients. And we developed a high-resolution hippocampus imaging sequence for our 7T scanner for him. It took us about 50 normals to get the sequence developed and optimized. Then after that, he sent us a few epilepsy patients. We imaged those, and that was preliminary data for his R01 grant. Also, if you're interested in animal models, we work very closely with our College of Veterinary Medicine. Our scanners are, large bore human scanners, so we can only do limited scanning on mice and rats, but our specialty is actually larger animal models like dogs, cats, sheep, and pigs, that sort of thing. Also, in a manner similar to the bird, we do a lot of work with researchers to sort of refine projects and proposals from an MRI perspective. We've got an MR physicist on staff here at the center, as well as an MR spectroscopist. We have a lot of experience designing or doing study design for functional MRI experiments. And finally, we have expertise in computer post-processing and of data, and it's primarily we primarily work with MRI data, but in this case, we also work with other modalities too, like CT or microscopy data. So, that in a nutshell is what we do here at the center. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it.
Okay, Tom, thank you so much. And what we're going to do, what did I just do?
Here.
There you go.
Up, there we go. So we'll go on to the next. And
Click on the screen, the main screen. It should advance.
last video. So, Mark, are you there?
Maybe muted.
Okay. So, let's unmute him.
How about now?
Yes.
That's perfect.
Great.
So, welcome.
And you ought to be able to see me.
Yes, we got you. Thanks very much.
Okay. I have very little to add to the outstanding presentations before, particularly as they relate to how the voucher program will catalyze getting out of the pilot stage into more substantive applications. I'll make a couple of brief remarks about USA and how and our specific uses of the voucher program. USA is prominent in the partnership in part because of the fact that it's the smallest medical center by quite a bit. We have a nascent clinical and translational research operation, and one of the reasons we're grateful to be associated with the partnership is that we think that it'll provide a lot of motive force to expand the clinical and translational stuff that we do. We're similar to some of the rest of you in the sense that we're fairly cash poor and there's not a lot of opportunity capital rolling around. So we developed, utilizing CTSA funds, we developed something called the Translational Research Services Center, which includes, as you can see on the slide, biostatistics, bioinformatics, clinical trials, and under the etc. would be bioimaging. We have first-rate, high-resolution confocal microscopy by way of just one example here. So clinical and translational investigators enter the system through the CRSC. If their needs for consultation exceed the typical allotment for the CRSC, then the voucher program becomes particularly useful. In addition, for things like biospecimen processing and sample processing and so forth, that's another area that we hope the voucher program is useful to us. And finally, I'll close with what we think we have to offer the rest of the partnership. In addition to the fact that we're among the most educable components of the partnership, if it succeeds with us, it'll be a great thing to put on the competing renewal application. We also have a remarkable patient population down here consisting of nine different ethnic groups with a wide variety of demographics. So we can provide patient populations that fulfill important needs for healthcare disparities research. And we have, as I think other people know, an exceptional outreach program in our Center for Healthy Communities led by Errol Crook. So that's a thumbnail sketch of USA's partnership in the CTSA and specifically our Translational Research Services Center and how we hope to use the voucher program.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mark. What I'd like to do, again, if I can get this working the right way, is to then go to what the application form looks like. Stu, is this you?
This will be mercifully brief. So you've heard about the multiple uses of this mechanism. I think it's actually fantastic. Now the question is, how do you go about applying for and obtaining resources for this? The key point here is the website. That's where this application is found. It's under the CCTS website under Research Voucher, all one word. Should be pretty easy. I think you go through Research Commons to get there, but it should be pretty easy to find. I found it, so it's pretty easy. And the application itself is designed to be easy as well. I guess I'll do this a little bit backwards. How will we evaluate these things? I think the plan going forward is that we'll have a rather streamlined process evaluating these in a rolling fashion, no specific sit-down times or third of the month or whatever it is. But basically, we meet every week as an executive committee on Tuesday mornings at 7. It's painful, but we congregate there. It's lovely to see Bob, of course, then, but the time is what I meant. And we, I think, at the level of the executive committee, will be making decisions on a rolling basis for the applications that have come in during that period to the last week or 2 weeks beforehand to determine whether we will fund these voucher proposals. And we're trying to make it as simple as possible, not only in the application process, but also in the evaluation process. So this is not a multi-tiered evaluation process, multi-layered hierarchical process. Rather, we're going to make decisions at the level of the executive committee. If there are questions that pertain because the application wasn't clear enough, we'll either try to clear those up in silico, or we'll follow up after we review the application if there's still remaining questions. Now, to the actual nuts and bolts of the process. It's a 2-pager, with most of it not being things you have to write on. The first page gives you some verbiage to remind you what this program is and what the CCTS's raison d'etre is. There's a note about the review process, which basically summarizes what I've just said. And then there are some questions, and they're pretty easy. There's the title of the project that comes after the questions, where you can find answers to your questions through the website. And then there's some demographic information, the obvious stuff: name, serial number, name and contact information, and your academic unit and who you're associated with, and phone number, etc. The nuts and bolts of the application then are found on the second page, which is basically a budget. How much do you think it's going to cost, and for what sort of activity? And here are the activities that we have just described that are clearly applicable. If you can come up with another activity that you think is applicable, you'll have to put another line in there and tell us what you want to spend, and then sort of justify it. We'll have to think about whether it fits the mission that NCATS has put forward for us for these vouchers. There's a project description, again, to describe the nature of the work that you're going to do. There's your assessment of the relationship to the CCTS mission, so that we can at least consider it in the context of what we're enabled to do. There's the impact. What do you hope to gain from use of these funds? What preliminary data, what manuscript to prepare or rebut, what grant to put in, et cetera. Give us a feel for how these funds will be impactful. And then there's a proposed timeline. How quickly do you need it? When will you be performing the work? I emphasize that the answers to each of these things should be short. We want the application to be intentionally very short. We don't want you to have to go beyond this 2 pages. No added 5-pagers, please, because we won't be very happy about that. In fact, the content should be brief, 1 to 3 sentences for each point, and to the point. I would view this as more of a credit line than as a check. I guarantee you that Dr. Kimberly is not going to be writing a check sending you the $4,285 that you need, but rather we'll be setting up a credit line for BIRD or the clinical research unit, or whatever the process is that is going to be done in the amount of the negotiated and justified budget. So don't get any ideas that you can use it to buy yourself a new patio furniture or something like that. I don't think it'll go for a Mercedes because it's only $5,000. Is that a reasonable summary of the process? Are there questions? Trying to make it as transparent as easy as possible. Yes, ma'am.
To follow up on the earlier question, can somebody apply for multiple vouchers from different parts?
It's a great question, actually. It came up, I think, with one of the presenters from Mississippi. In other words, if you had a project that required $2,000 in bioinformatics, 1,000 in specimen processing, and 2,000 in nursing time or whatever, how would we view that? And I actually have to tell you, I'm not sure we've considered that for a little bit. Bob, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it depends on what you mean by multiple. If you have a project and you want to submit multiple requests for $5,000 vouchers, so you're really asking for $30,000.
I think we see through that.
Probably is not consistent with the intent either of the CCTS or NCATS. Mm-hmm. I think if there's an array of activities that are needed, whether they be whatever those services might be, wherever they are, and we've seen examples given of cross-institutional within different institutions and so on. And I think it probably makes sense, but we'll have to be evaluating these as they come through.
And I think we've allowed for that, actually, by having multiple lines here with different services. Right. So that's a very good question. I actually thought about that at the same time. But I think that the intent is ingrained in the structure of the application. Right. Yes, ma'am.
So if you mentioned at the beginning that you can get some support as far as specimen collection for clinical trials. So how would that work? So if you have a coordinator or somebody who's collecting that, how would the credit work towards that? Like if you want to get somebody specific to do that.
I mean, my own view would be that if you already have somebody doing this that's funded, then you don't need a voucher.
If we don't have that money.
Okay, well, we have people that can help, and CRISP in particular. So you have people either fixed at JT15 that Bert described, or a roving bunch, well, they don't really rove, but a mobile bunch, cadre of experts that are called CRISP. Maybe that didn't come through before. So those are people who can be employed for just this purpose on a temporary basis. These are really high-class temps, essentially.
Another way to think about it is use the model of Uber.
Right.
When you have something that you need right now, it's a way to get something for that one ride that you need or whatever that specific thing.
It's a perfect use for it, actually. And along those lines, I think I made the point before, if that's contemplated to be what you want to do, you might want to follow through either in silico or by telephone with Penny Jester, who leads the CRISP effort. Penny's right there, actually. Roving, I guess I should say. High class temps.
We would like a little bit more than a 5-minute, Uber will come in 5 to 10 minutes. We may have trouble with that.
But the point is, it would behoove you to have a bit of a consultation beforehand to inform you as to how to budget it and how to exactly propose what you want to propose. That's the most efficient use of the resources. Does that help?
Any questions? Have any questions come in from folks over the Citrix?
And how did you say?
It
You would
flash
tell me.
on them. Yes.
You would tell me.
Any other questions from the group? Stu, you've done a marvelous job. We finished within 3 minutes of 6 o'clock.
I'm good.
Which is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe you could thank everyone for joining us since you're closest to the microphone.
Thanks all you folks who are out there in silico. We appreciate your efforts.
Mark and Mike and Tom, all thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, if there are anyone who'd like some additional conversation in terms of a CRISP model, we might have some offline conversations as well. That model right now is being developed in the Birmingham site, and it's being used as a prototype that might be implemented in some other sites. So the model is general, the specific CRISP implementation is specific to Birmingham. Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you. This was good. It's helped me.